What's up, guys? It's your girl Kia, and I am back for another video. Actually, I already recorded this, but I completely forgot that I had a business call that I had to stop the video. All right. So, listen, this is going to be a really interesting one and one that I really wish I didn't have to make. But once again, Tamra Judge is thinking that all of us are stupid. She recently got on her podcast, Two Idiots in a Pod, with Teddy Mellencamp, and kind of just blurted out that she is on the spectrum. She had a 2 hour session with her therapist, and they were going through these different symptoms that anybody can find on TikTok or diagnose himself on WebMD, and said that her therapist told her that she was on the spectrum and how it's such a revelation and all this kind of stuff. And as a special needs parent, and if you watch my channel, I talk about my stepson, my son Devin, all the time because he has mosaic Down syndrome. He also has a lot of friends who have been in my home. I've been in their home. I've watched these kids. I've played with these kids. I've been into class with these kids all the time. I'm their funtie. We're all of us parents are close. I'm highly offended by this as a special needs parent, as a special needs funtie, as someone who is knee deep in the therapy process, whose son has 3 therapies a week and had physical therapy, and watching all those kids there and watching them grow and thrive and struggle. It's offensive. And don't get me wrong, I understand that the spectrum is a wide band of things and they keep throwing more things in there. Like, oh, you have trouble walking a little bit, you may be on the spectrum. You have a problem making eye contact, you might be on the spectrum. It's all these people who think they're on the spectrum. In reality, it's a lot that goes into a diagnosis. And I was listening to Zach Peters' podcast, and I'm just now, learning about his podcast. And what he was saying is exactly right when it comes to being on the spectrum and getting services, which is a long process to get services, especially once your child becomes an adult. My child turned 19. When he turned 18, all of his services stopped, which was completely shocking to me and my husband. We're like, wait, they're just gonna stop. They're like, oh, now he's an adult. Now he has to prove that he's still special needs and still needs services, which was a slap in the face. And that took 19 months to get through. And we're still fighting for him to get his Medicaid back so that he can go back to his services. I mean, he got approved by Social Security. That's a whole different argument, and I need to focus back on Tamra. So Tamra actually saw the backlash that she was getting, and she saw the backlash she was getting and went ahead and put out an additional statement. And here's what her additional statement says: I started therapy because this year has been really hard for me. We'll get into that. I started feeling insecure. I was having intrusive thoughts, and I didn't want to leave my house unless I had to. I even considered just being admitted to a mental health facility. In my conversations with my therapist, whom I've known for years, we talked about a lot over the course of 2 hours. And she told me that many of the things about me, like how I process information, my sensory issues, my social anxiety, my aversion to eye contact with new people, and me not wanting to be out of my routine, were all signs of being on the spectrum. So let's stop and back up a little bit. I started therapy because this year has been really hard on me. Why is this year being hard on you, Tamra? Because you have been a despicable, deplorable human being to the women that you work with. I understand that it's a TV show and it's reality TV stars and this and that, but these women are women that you work with, and you haven't just been quirky or weird to them. Emily is not everybody's favorite character in ROC. She's been quirky and mean and hard in this time, but she's never been disgusting or just despicable to somebody or just trying to beat them when they were down. Emily's just been annoying. Even Heather. Heather is not having a great season. She's doing some weird things to Shannon right now, but she's never been despicable and deplorable. Jen, we've never had an issue with. Gina's had really, all these people on these reality shows have had weird moments. Only Tamra and occasionally Kenya and Giselle are 3 people that I can just pinpoint off the top of my head who are despicable to people. Tamra especially, when you see how she's treating Shannon, she has said horrible, just blurted horrible things out. Shannon sits down at the dinner table or orders a drink, not orders a drink and then's like, throw me my keys so I can drive out. She sits down at a table and orders a drink, and Tamra screams out at the dinner table, yeah, get the alcoholic a drink. It's like, what in the world are you, what? Every chance Tamra has gotten on this show, she has been really, really mean and disgusting to Tamra. And what makes it even more interesting is that she thought, I feel, that people were going to be on her and Alexis' side to be like, oh, look, Shannon's just a drunk. She's this and that. So let's just go harder and harder and harder because we know the fans are going to be on her side. Now that she is seeing that the fans are not on her side and that people are really, really disturbed by her behavior, now this is why she's feeling, I have had it's been really hard on me this year. I'm starting to feel insecure. You're feeling insecure because people aren't on your side, are not supporting you like you thought, and you're feeling like a person who's on an island by themselves. You're having intrusive thoughts. I hope some of those intrusive thoughts are you need to quit the show and get off reality TV. Um, I don't want to leave my house unless I have to. Because when you leave your house, the fans aren't going to be begging to take a picture with you. They're going to be, really probably giving you some harsh criticism. I don't want anybody to be violent to Tamara or any of these girls in these reality shows, but you're not going to get the same, oh my God, it's Tamra Judge. Oh my God, it's so cute. Oh my God, can I take a picture with you? You're going to get, why are you so mean to Shannon? Like, why are you so rude and nasty in general? Why are you being mean to Jen? Why are you going after her fiance? Why are you doing all these things? And having knowing you have this type of vitriol that people are throwing at you can be hard for you to leave the house. That doesn't mean that you're on the autism spectrum. Not wanting to make direct eye contact with people, with new people, which I do that as well. I'm not a huge fan of making direct eye contact with new people. Does not mean I'm on the spectrum. It just means it's just like a weird thing for me to do because you don't want your eye contact to be too hard. And if it's somebody that you knew, you don't want them to come over and try to actually talk to you. So you're kind of like, they're here, your eyes are over here, like, oh, hi, it's nice to meet you. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Oh, it's good. It's great. And then you walk away quickly. That's a normal situation. Her second paragraph, in my conversations with my therapist, whom I've known for years, that comes off like this therapist is your friend and not that this is somebody that you have been working with diligently twice a week, every week since you were 25. It sounds like it's somebody that you've known and you passively decided to go to therapy and, whatever. We talked about a lot of things over 2 hours, and she told me that many of the things about me, like how I process information, blah, 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 she's listing all the things, were all signs of being on the spectrum. What I think that the therapist probably actually just made a passing comment about her could be, you possibly could be on the spectrum. I don't know. She could have just said that. Tamara has now taken maybe this innocuous statement, this private statement that this therapist is giving you, just saying, hey, these are some things we can talk about further. These are some things we can look about. These are some things this is some things that I'm seeing that, maybe we take a deeper look into. Tamara has now taken that and said, I am on the spectrum. How? And I feel bad for this therapist because I feel like if I was this therapist, I would never want Tamara to say my name everywhere because now she's going to be maligned and have to defend, a private conversation that she had in her therapy office. Because what people don't know about therapy is that your therapist is trying to help you get through whatever issues you have to help you become a better person. So they could have they sometimes say things like, maybe it's from this, maybe it's from this. Let's look about this. Let's walk it back and talk about these things. That's how therapy works. It's not just in one session you get a diagnosis. And you can't even get diagnosed from therapy. There's sometimes things that the therapist notice, and then they will recommend you to a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a medical doctor or somebody to say, hey, maybe we need to do further testing on this. But I think that at 60 years old, Tamra Judge all of a sudden is now getting diagnosed with autism? No. Tamra Judge, also, I'm sorry that my camera is glitchy. I don't know why it's doing that. No, I don't think at 60 years old, this is all of a sudden some new thing that she discovered over a 2-hour therapy session with one of her homegirls. I don't. And it's offensive. Getting a diagnosis, like I've talked about, my son has mosaic Down syndrome, and it's like Down syndrome, but it kind of leans more towards autism. It's like I don't know, I hate calling them diseases, but the conditions kind of autism and Down syndrome kind of meet in the middle and make mosaic Down syndrome. That's what my son has. And it took a long time for him to get diagnosed properly. Like, he was diagnosed as a very small baby, but then when I came into the picture, they put him in special needs classes, but there was no therapies happening. So we had to go through the process of getting him evaluated, getting approved, and then once an approval, waiting a long list to get him therapy, to then get him to certain points, to have them give analysis of him and so on and so forth. So it's not some 2-hour session that you can do. It's a long process. And like I talked about at the beginning of the video, with getting approved for Social Security and his services, you have to really prove that you have an issue and prove through the system. And it's just a lot to be a special needs parent and an autistic parent. It's not just this 2 hour therapy session. Um, Tamra goes on to say that she just blurted this out. She hadn't even told her family yet, which also lets me know that you're kind of full of crap. When you get a diagnosis of anything, you don't run to social media first. You need to tell your family first so that they have time to process it and they can kind of decide, okay, so what does this mean? How does this work? How are we going to handle this? What are we going to do? And even though Tamara's a grown woman and her kids don't live in her house, she probably needs to sit down with her husband and say, hey, I had this conversation with my therapist, my homegirl, and I don't really know what it means. It's kind of making me uncomfortable. I don't know how to process it. And your husband needs to be the one to help you kind of move on to next steps. You just blurting it out for on a podcast seems like you're just doing it for attention. And you're doing it to scapegoat the horrible behavior that we've seen on the show towards Shannon and towards Jen and towards Ryan. You know, it's not lost on me the fact that Tamara has been blurting out stuff a lot, particularly about Jen's fiance Ryan, and Ryan is now suing her. So it's not lost on me that now she's like, oh, well, this is maybe if I just say I'm on the spectrum, and sometimes people on the spectrum just blurt things out, or they just do this and they have no impulse control and this and that. It's making it seem like people who deal with autism or are on the spectrum are these uncontrollable animals, and that anything that they do is just it's excusable. It's fine because I'm on the spectrum. Oh, I can yell at other people, and I have auditory issues, but it's okay for me to yell because I'm on the spectrum. And that's offensive. My son, again, is special needs. A lot of the kids he deals with are autistic on the spectrum. They know right from wrong. My son had to is working really hard on dealing with being able to handle his emotions. And we've been working on it for about 5 years. And finally, me and my husband came to the agreement of, okay, we've been working on this for 5 years. It's not really getting a lot better. And now he's on medication. Not a route that we wanted to take. We've been avoiding it forever, but now he is. And now it's actually helping. We don't get a lot of outbursts anymore. We don't get a lot of slamming fists. We don't get a lot of grit teeth we were getting from him. But it's not a scapegoat. Your diagnosis or my son's diagnosis or the other kids' diagnosis is not a scapegoat for bad behavior. Think about the kid who got into a fight, not a fight, excuse me, who attacked his teacher who was special needs. And he actually is a special needs kid, but he's really, really big. I think you guys can look up that story. He attacked his teacher brutally, and he had done other things to attack other teachers previously. And he's now, I think he ended up getting 36 months in jail. He almost killed that lady. And he's dealing with the consequences of that. And his parents had intervention and done what they were supposed to do, but sometimes consequences have to be met. So, I think it's crazy that she jumped online and just blurted it out, and that's completely fine because she's on the spectrum and now she feels bad. She goes on to say, afterwards, my instinct was to have it removed, but I'm used to being open with everything in my life. I thought against it. Now I wish I had. I just want to take people through the journey with me as I've always done, but I realized how I spoke too soon publicly and that processing this was such an onslaught of negative comments has been horrible. This is not your facelift. This is not that creepy blue chemical peel you got. This is a diagnosis that a lot of people have, that a lot of people have to deal with on a daily basis. And you just blurting it out without any real diagnosis and just somebody saying you seem like you might have symptoms. Hell, I could go on TikTok and have a lot of diseases if we're just going off symptoms. I could have every disease this side of the Mississippi if we're just going off what TikTok says. Or, here's another thing that people don't know about me. I deal with severe anxiety, and not the TikTok anxiety or the social media anxiety everybody thinks is cool. I deal with real severe anxiety. I have dealt with it since I was 13 years old. I remember the first time I had a panic attack, it was at my cousin's graduation party, and I kept getting these real pressure-filled hiccups that turned out to be these really, really loud beeps. Like really, really loud beeping noises. That slowly evolved into me having these shaking issues and overwhelmed and couldn't see straight, lightheaded. And I'm 13 at this time, and it slowly changed over time. But there was a point in time where I had to take medication. It got better. Now, once my kids were born, I was dealing with mom anxiety more, and new symptoms are now appearing where now I can't sleep. Now I'm sweating profusely when I have a panic attack. My feet, bottom of my feet get really itchy. I'm overwhelmed, knots in my throat, can't see straight again, lightheaded. It's a horrible feeling having them, and you cannot control them. And I don't let my anxiety be an excuse for anything. I just have to deal with it. My symptoms weren't diagnosed from TikTok. They are something that I've dealt with since I was a teenager. And it's annoying when I see, just like with the autism thing, when people can just go online and go, I have a new revelation about myself. I have anxiety. Or don't talk to me like that. It really hurts my anxiety. Or, I had a revelation. I'm on the spectrum and I'm dealing with it. These aren't revelations. And I heard Zach Peters again talk about how these aren't revelations. These are things that help you understand yourself better. Having anxiety is something that, one, I don't like to talk about. Two, I'm embarrassed by. And three, I have to work hard at dealing with it on a regular basis. And it's so funny because my mom and brother can tell, my husband can kind of tell now when it's about to happen. My mom can definitely tell because she was there when it first started happening. She can tell when my anxiety has gone drastically up. And I'm about to go into, it can get pretty bad. Like I can get pretty, when Tamra talks about intrusive thoughts, I'm not going to get emotional talking about this, but the intrusive thoughts harmed me so bad that I tried to take my own life. This was, going on now, I want to say, oh my God, almost 14 years ago, this happened. And, the intrusive thoughts got so bad with the anxiety and the panic attack that, I ended up out of it for a week and a half, and then even more out of it for months after that. And it took a really long time to get over that. And even now, when I have intrusive thoughts, a lot of times about being a mother and being a failure as a mother, it can be really dark. I mean, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I got a bad report about my twins who are 3.5. And I remember I was sitting on the couch and tears are streaming down my face. And I'm just saying horrible things about myself as a mom, like horrible, awful things about my mom, myself as a mother and how I failed. And just because my kids had a bad report at school, then they were recommending my daughter to have therapy. See, that's the other thing. They wanted my 3.5-year-old daughter to have like some kind of weird ABA intervention at school. And that just killed me. And that, brought on the intrusive thoughts. So that's, again, this is just what people deal with. She goes on to say, I have past trauma that is deep and painful. That is something I've suppressed for 15 years. She hasn't suppressed it for 15 years. If you look at the show, Tamra has gotten it out there about her issues with her mother, her issues with her ex. She was in an abusive relationship. She has talked about these past traumas, but she has done zero, it seems like, outside of doing speaking engagements about it, to actually get help for her trauma. But she's definitely talked about it. She's been open about it. Excuse me. So I don't understand that part. But I'm finally getting help. Okay, cool. You're finally getting help. And lastly, so as much as I appreciate the amazing people who reached out, I think it's best to move forward more privately until I get into a bit better mental space. My mental health is just not strong enough where I can be judged and hated on right now. Yes, I'm admitting I'm weak, and I'm okay with that right now. You didn't need to blurt this out on your podcast. You thought it was going to be received a lot more happier, just like you thought your behavior on the show towards Shannon was going to be received with a lot more positivity, and none of the things that you wanted are happening because people see through the garbage. People see that you are not authentic, you are not real. Even your own husband said, I don't really talk to TV Tamra, I only talk to the real Tamra. But this Tamra is telling us that everything she does is real and it's not just a storyline, this is just her life. So what is her husband talking about? This is just a really new low for Tamra. It's a really new low for the Real Housewives franchise and Bravo to allow somebody to lie like this when it comes to special, to mental health, what it means to people who are dealing with mental health, people who are dealing with special needs parents who are autistic. Again, back to Zach Peters. Um, you know, I watched his video and I'm in the same boat he has. I remember moments, and I'll wrap this up, when my son has a birth mother who's not active in his life. She loves him to death. She's just not active. She's dealing with mental health issues. So she's just not active in his life. And when she used to call him and they would have long conversations because he's gotten better at communicating, he would get off the phone with her. Then the next day at school, he would be a nightmare. Not because of anything specific that she said, but because he missed her so much and he didn't know how to have that reaction about missing her. And, that broke my heart as the mom that's in the house, having to be able to manage his feelings and his emotions and everything. So I have so many feelings like this about this. And I really wish Tamra would have waited, got a real diagnosis, maybe even brought the person who diagnosed on her show to walk people through. And I also think this would have a different effect on people if Tamra was already apologizing about her behavior on the show and towards Shannon. And she's not going to do that. So here we are. So Tamra Bravo, the Real Housewives of Orange County producers really need to take a huge step back and really think about this and what it means and how they're going to move forward to Tamra, because with this whole her pulling this out of her butt, it's not being received well. Nobody believes it. Nobody trusts her. So listen, that's my video. I know it's a long commentary, it's a long video. Whew, drop that in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you think if I'm wrong, if I'm missing the point. I want to hear from you. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.